Yep, let's get it going. Let's get the party started, Chris, as I always say.
You do the highlight. You know I don't know how to do all that.
I got you. Here we are. Okay, welcome everybody. We'll make sure all lines are muted out now. And Chris, are you recording? I'm not sure, but yeah, it looks like it
Got it
is.
going. Got it
Okay.
going.
Hey,
We're all recording.
Whoops, it muted you, Chris. Sorry.
I forget when I make somebody else the host that knocks that me out. So anyway, uh, we're ready when you are, Cindy.
Okay, guys. Well, this is exciting. As all of you know, Chris Doyle has been running this call. Chris, has it been 9 years?
Something
10
like
years? It's a
that. Yeah.
long time. So every Saturday morning, with an exception of a handful throughout those years, Chris has run this call. But what we realized is we've never interviewed Chris. So we turned the tables on him today, and he is actually the guest, and I'm going to host. And uh-oh, we lost him. That's not good, is it? I'm not sure where you went, Chris, but we'll get you back on in just a second here. And and so, Chris, I really want to get started today because I've known you for, gosh, going on, I think, well, it's 17 years now or something like that. I'm not even, I'd have to
Uh,
do the math. And I know your stories and I know how inspiring they've been to me over the years and how they've inspired so many others. And I know your story, but so many people only have heard little bits and pieces. And I think it's important because people see you as you are now. I mean, in the company, right? What after you've been through it all. But I think it's important to figure out how you got here and the journey it took to actually be Chris Doyle, the money man, the successful network marketer, so to speak. And I think that a lot of people can benefit from that. And I know you started as a very successful businessman, but take us back to the beginning. And once we get to the beginning, then we'll get into the nuggets of building and some stuff that people really could use that can help a lot of people.
Thanks, Cindy. This is a little bit odd for me because I'll admit I'm a little more nervous than normal. I'm usually get up here with no issues. I told my wife this morning, I said it's a little different today. I'm used to just asking a few questions and having a leader on that can just take it from there, and I just sip on my coffee and add some things in. But I'm excited about that. You know, I think sometimes, Cindy, people look and they all they see is the end result. They don't realize what people went through to get there. And most people know my story from the fact that I was in the blue jean business, and so I'm going to go back all the way to that. But life, you know, I've been an entrepreneur, I guess is the right word for it, pretty much all my life. I've worked for myself. I think I've had two, for those in the US, I've only had two W-2 forms, and I turned 70 this week. So I've always worked for myself in some form or fashion, whether it was a 1099 or some form of that. But long and short of it is that I had built a really large manufacturing company in the late 80s, mid 80s, I should say, and 90s. And we stonewashed blue jeans. And many of you will have heard of the brands. We did work for like companies like Calvin Klein, Lee Jeans, Abercrombie. I could name probably 28, 30 companies. Not important, other than I employed about 430 people. Before that, I owned a real estate company. That's one of the things Cindy and I always had a great connection about. Cindy was a realtor. She was way bigger in the real estate business than I was. I did own a Coldwell Banker office in Jackson, Tennessee, the first one in the state. But I got into manufacturing, turned into something much larger than I anticipated. And then for those that don't remember, there was something called the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, which opened trade borders. Tariffs are a big talk right now about no tariffs, tariffs. I'm not going to get into this. Is not a political thing by no means, but that's when tariffs were there before they were eliminated. And U.S. did a whole lot more manufacturing. And when the NAFTA agreement was signed and tariffs were dropped to Mexico and other countries, my business bankrupted. I mean, we could go into a lot of details, but I went from having a massive company to being bankrupt. We lost literally about $8.5 million, according to my accountant, in less than 2 years. And there was no way to stop the bleeding. And I wished I could tell you that I was real smart. I was one of these guys that went out and found this company, got in this industry. The best way to describe it was I had no interest in network marketing. I will admit I was praying for something to change. I was looking. I hated what I was doing. I did not like my job. And for those of you that are looking for someone and thinking you're afraid to call them, I will promise you, you need to make the calls, because I was somebody looking, but most people would not have thought that. Because of my success, they didn't know that we had hit rock bottom. And so I was trying to start over. And so, but I didn't want network marketing. I'm just going to be straight up. I hid from them. My nephew had gotten involved with a company where I met Todd Rowland, actually, where I ended up meeting Cindy. And we did very well there. But the way to also understand it did not start that way. Now, I want people to understand that. I did not want to look. I was totally negative. I hid from my nephew for weeks. Extortion to get me to listen. I used the word blackmail. My sister said, you need to use the word extortion. She's real, one of those people that gets on words, says extortion's better, sounds better. But the bottom line was I went to look at that business only because I had been loaned a four-wheeler. And a lot of people remember that story, is that he had loaned me a four-wheeler to hunt. And I really couldn't go hunting unless I had a four-wheeler, because where I hunt was so hard to get in and out of. And certainly at that time, I was 318 pounds because of all the steroids I was on. But at any rate, I went and listened. To be perfectly honest, as a business owner, and I think that sometimes amazes me that people don't join our industry. They come up with all these excuses. There was no risk. I mean, that company cost if you recall, Cindy, it cost us $698 to start. And so there was a $698 buy-in. You didn't get any product for that. You got a website and the ability to work. And so I spent $698 to start in that business. But to me, that was no risk, because I had owed millions of dollars in bank debt when we lost our company. And so to me, it just looked like it would work. And so that's kind of the great start. Was I didn't even intend to do it very long. I knew that it looked like I could make some money. That's where I met Todd Rowland. And I'll be very honest, I'd say it right in front of him. I was not very impressed with him. He was just an old football coach from Arkansas, and he was making money. And I thought, if he can do it, I can do it. And right now I need to supplement my income. You know what supplement meant? I didn't have any income to amount to anything. We were living from one paycheck to paycheck because we weren't making it. So Judy was working 70 hours a week as a hairstylist and had gone back to work after we lost our company. And that was our great start. And I did not succeed quickly. I think that's one of the things that Cindy wanted me to hit on, is that I struggled. In the beginning, I did not do well. I was not used to, I didn't follow instructions well. Let me make this very clear. I was the one, when I tell people be coachable, I wasn't coachable. I was going to do it my way. I was hard-headed, and I didn't have a great start. And it took me a long time to really get going. But I was making a little bit. I'd make it, I'd get a check here and there. Well, I look back on it. I even almost brought it out to show people. My first check I got it behind. I made $99 on my first paycheck. And
How long did it take you to make that?
about 3 weeks.
Okay.
But hey, it was a long time before I got another paycheck. It was $99 in 3 weeks. I think the next paycheck was $198. It was about 30 days later. So, making a long story short, it was not one of those things that happened quickly, by no means. But with that said, basically, but I saw that it would work. And I will say this for everybody: making a little money, most businesses take time. I'm gonna mute somebody here. I'm not sure what's happening. We got somebody.
Yep, somebody's unmuted. That's all right. We get it.
All right, but anyway, it validated it, if that makes any sense. Just a little bit of commission meant that I believed it would work, and I still had no intention of expecting to be here 20 plus years later. I just thought, I can do this, so I can figure out what I'm going to do. And to make things really important, I would tell you is that I struggled really bad, especially for the first few years. It was really difficult seeing people join my own team outperform me. That was probably the most difficult. I'm not sure if I've ever told Cindy that. I actually had people below me doing better than me. Because when people say this is a pyramid, it always blows my mind because I got people, I've had many times had people on my team making more money than I made. And that's where the big misconception is. Someone can go in this business and they can outperform whoever sponsored them. My nephew sponsored me and I did better than him, but I had people I sponsored at that time, and I could name some names you would probably remember, Cindy. They were outperforming me.
Yeah.
And so, but here was the difference. They had other businesses. They had other things to do to fall back on. I didn't have something to fall back on. I didn't have any education. By the way, just for those to think that you got to be smart or you're smarter than the next guy. I mean, I get all these things about, well, you're bet. Guys, I had a 1.7 GPA in high school. Well, that was really good. 1.7 GPA. Okay. So I didn't go to college. Obviously, why? You couldn't get, there was nobody going to take me in college. But the thing was that I was very driven. So I won't make that very clear. I was always driven. I knew that I'd made money once and I'd watched. By the way, I should also go back a little further. I think it's important to know where a person comes from. Neither of my parents even went to high school. I want you to hear that. Neither of my parents went to high school. They both, my dad finished seventh grade and my mom finished eighth grade. But something happened when I was a child. I was 9 years old. My parents went into business for themselves. And I watched us go from what I call the wrong side of the tracks, where we lived in a two-bedroom house and our boys slept in the attic. Ken Grisham's on the call. Ken knows the area I lived in Parsons, Tennessee. There was one traffic light in that town, and they don't need it. So there's one traffic, especially 50 years ago, they didn't need it. And they didn't turn it on a lot. So how you like that? You got a traffic light you don't turn on. So that's where I grew up. But my parents went into business for themselves, and my mom was very good at it. And we went from living there in that little two-bedroom asbestos shingle house, and the boys slept in an attic. And I'm people thought I was making that up. I actually have pictures of that house to prove that point. My sister, with the three boys and a girl, sisters had the other bedroom. It's a two-bedroom. The boys slept in the attic. I didn't know we were poor. We ate every meal, so I don't want to make it sound like that. I just didn't know that we were really dirt poor. But when my parents got that business, it made me realize as long as you're working for somebody else, you're building their dream. And when you begin to work for yourself, you can build your dream. It may take longer, but at least you're plowing your own field. That was an old story, and I've heard somebody say you're doing your own work. And so I watched my parents become successful. They actually moved out what we call into the rich neighborhood. They lived out on the highway, but the bankers, as a matter of fact, their next door neighbor was a man who owns First Bank. He actually passed away recently. His name's Jim Ayers. He was worth, I don't know, $3 to $4 billion. That was
Wow.
their neighbor. So that's a pretty good company to have in the neighborhood. So why did I tell you that story? Is that mentally it made a huge impact that I think lasted for a long time, because I realized that if you're ever, by the way, my older brother had got 2 doctorate degrees. My sister Sheila, that Ken knows, got a master's degree. They all did all the right things. They went to college. Well, I realized business ownership was where it needed to be, and you need to be building your own. So that's kind of, I really believe, made the probably, because all the things I can tell you, there's one thing I can't change for you, and it's a 4-inch and 5-inch space based on your head size. The two things between your ears, your brain, your mindset, that is going to be the most important thing that you can get. And I'm very fortunate and I was blessed because it was instilled in me at such a young age that my mindset realized you got to work for yourself. So all that said, going back to network marketing, it just looked like it ought to work. I mean, the risk factor was so low, but I still had the stigma. And by the way, it took me years to get past it. What I mean by the stigma, meaning that people say it's one that in the South, by the way, I know we get made fun of because of our country slang, and I'm sure everybody's laughing at my accent, is that we called it one of them things. That's a THANG. I'm not sure that's a word, but it was one of them things. You're in one of them things. It's one of them pyramid things. It's one of them. Okay. I'm in one of them things and proud to be in one of them things. But for many years, it was hard for me to tell people that. When people ask me what I did for a living, I would say now, when I got into network marketing, I would say, I'm in sales, I'm in marketing. And I didn't want to say MLM. I didn't want to say network marketing. I was ashamed of it. The funny part is now I live in a pretty exclusive neighborhood in Jackson, and none of my neighbors believe me. They still don't. I've been here 10 years, and they don't think that I'm in network marketing. It's hilarious, actually, because I think they think I'm a drug dealer because we live a pretty good lifestyle. We drive nice vehicles and we live in a pretty exclusive area. And it's like they don't know that we truly are network marketers. And that's really my sole source of income. I mean, it's what we do. So with that said, one of the things that even, and I guarantee you, we could ask if you, by the way, if sometimes you're a little embarrassed to say you're network marketing or have been, put a one in the chat because we all have been not really didn't want to admit what we did.
I have to put a one on the chat there for sure. You know,
See,
I didn't want to do it either.
and so it's here you have to understand. I'm the guy that had made millions of dollars a year in the manufacturing business, the pillar of the community. You know, we were donated money to the symphony. We, you know, when the school needed extra money, the private school my kids went to, we were the ones that donated money to do. We love doing those things. But then we were also the people that went completely bankrupt and lost everything. And when I remember going through so much depression, and guys, I don't mind telling you, losing my company put me in a really bad place. I know Cindy wanted me to tell you that story because she knows it.
Yeah.
So I went into a really dark hole. I lost my business. I remember, by the way, I'll even admit I drank a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean, I'm talking a minimum of a quart of vodka probably a daily because I was just so depressed, which of course didn't help. It made it worse. But at the time, you didn't care. So I went through a really dark time there before I got into this industry, trying to find myself, trying to figure out what I was going to go. And I still remember my wife. I remember going to the door once and I walked back in. I'd been drinking all night, of course. And I told Judy, I said, the Ferrari's not in the garage. And she snapped her finger and she said, honey, we lost that about a year and a half ago. We went bankrupt, remember? And I would have to almost refocus on what was happening, that I was in a bad place. And luckily for me, I think it was an inspiration of prayer. I'm not going to go into the whole story because I went through a lot of difficult times and that I was praying for something to change. By the way, I didn't pray to get rich again. I didn't pray to make millions of dollars. I prayed to contribute because I watched my wife work so hard trying to keep us held together, working 70 hours a week, that all I wanted to do was to be a contributing again. And so for those that want to know what I was doing when I found network marketing, I was a bail bondsman and a bounty hunter. That was not any full-time salary. It was all commission. And so it was easy not to want to go back. So some of you are in here that got successful careers. You do other things. You already make money. You got money. I wasn't that person. I was someone who was totally broke, doing something they hated every day. And I was looking for a way out. So did I like network marketing? No. But I looked at the potential for it. And now I love it. But in the beginning, it was not that way. I did it out of a necessity. And it just seemed like it could work. And I will admit something. I believe it was the answer to my prayers. I just didn't see that in the beginning. Does that make sense? I didn't
Definitely.
know that it was the answer to my prayer. I just wanted it. I was still praying for something to change and not realizing it had been laid on my lap. I think God does that to us sometimes. He does things to you don't realize that was from him, and you pray for things to change, but you want it the way you want it, not the way it always comes out. And for me, that's what happened. And then it's almost like so. I don't know. I mean, I get so wound up about this, thinking about what could have been if I hadn't have went to that meeting that night. I still remember the Holiday Inn in Jackson, Tennessee. That sold twice. It's not the Holiday Inn anymore. To meet that football coach and listen to that meat business, and it just made sense. I don't know what else to say. I'm like, it just didn't look like there was that much risk. And if I can do this for a while till I can figure out what I'm going to do,
Hmm.
I guess 25 years later, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I was 44 years old at that time. So I guess it's 26 years ago. And here we are 26 years later, and it's been a blessing that I can't explain. But it wasn't easy. I'm so frustrated when I hear network marketing say, oh, you just got to do this. There ain't nothing to it. Just post. And nope, it's not true. And if you hear somebody say that, call them out on it. This takes time, effort, and consistency. And
Mhm.
but it's worth it. So I will warn you that it will tell you it's going to be hard. And there's going to be times when you want to quit. So that's kind
Yeah.
of the, go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, we
I can see
did.
that
Yeah.
question. You know,
Yeah, because I think there's two things there in what you said that people will want to know. One, at what point, I know it made sense because that's what it was for me. I was reluctant, and then you see it and you're like, what if, right? You kind of started going, what if that's real? It makes sense. Could it be real? Do people really make money, right? You go through the questioning. But at what point you had nothing to lose in a sense, right? You only had gain. So, like you said, there's people here who are RNs or who have successful careers in something else. You didn't have anything to lose, so to speak. You just go for it. But at what point did it really dawn on you? I know there were points where you almost quit. So
yeah.
let's talk about those, but let's also talk about what was the one pivotal moment that you thought this is the real deal and I'm not going to quit. What's the two factors?
Well, from the standpoint of quitting, is that I was frustrated. I was not growing. It was years into it, and I was working it hard. So I don't want to give the wrong impression. So many people think it's how much time does it take. See, we want to say, well, I've been in 6 months. Well, the question is how much time. Well, I went into it hard, and I did something most people I would tell everybody not to do. I quit what I was doing to make an income stream. I hated bail bonding and bounty hunting so bad that I walked. And Judy was happy about that. She said, I'll work extra. So I went full time, but that didn't help. It didn't make my income go up a bit. Matter of fact, I spent more money. Back then we didn't have Zooms.
Hmm.
Back then we had cell phones, but we traveled. We got in the cars. We had to go do meetings. We traveled all around the country trying to get things going. And after, I guess it was about 2 years in, and I wasn't making my expenses. I wasn't paying the bills. I mean, I'm talking about my home bills. I wasn't paying the bills it cost me to work the business. I mean, I was trying to travel. And I know Cindy laughed. She said, I want you to make sure you tell the story. So I go from driving a Ferrari to work and had a BMW in the driveway and a Porsche Carrera in the driveway to driving a worn out 300,000 mile Suburban with a broken windshield. And I know that's what you were talking
That's
about.
where I was getting to.
It had hail damage.
Eating snowballs, by the way, at gas stations for dinner.
That's right. That's exactly right. Cupcakes. And, but the truck was worn out. I was embarrassed to drive it, but it was transportation. It was paid for. The reason we still owned it was that the bank didn't want to take it because it wasn't worth anything. And so the long and short of it was that truck became, and, and I probably should even go into this point that because we traveled so much, I couldn't afford hotels. I slept in that truck a few nights. No anymore. And somebody would say, how did you shower and clean up? If you don't know it, truck stops offer showers. They do not know where you come from. So I would pull my Suburban around in the truck area and I'd walk in like I was a trucker with my bag and I'd put my name on the list for a shower. And I would take a shower at the truck stop. Is that, so when people say there's a price, there's a price to pay. And for those of us that were broke, and I'm not telling you, but they need to do that. I'm not saying that's where you are. I was broke. I had to make something work. So I was doing whatever I could do to make it happen, but it wasn't happening. And I was very frustrated. And Judy was getting frustrated. And she kept saying, are you sure this is going to work? And I was beginning to think, no, probably not. I began to doubt it myself. I could see people doing it. And I kept thinking, why are they better than me? And so, long and short of it is, I basically decided I was going to go do something different. I was going to go back to that bail bonding. I was going to I started putting out resumes. And I was going to look for a different job. I didn't want to go back to a job, but I mean, it wasn't fair to my wife to be working like she was. I even told my sister, a lot of you know Sheila, my sister, and I stopped at her house. Fortunately for me, she lived in Nashville at the time. So if I was traveling that direction, I always had a bedroom I could stop by and sleep and have a nice shower. And I told her, I said, I just don't think this is going to work. She was one of the first reps I put in the business. And I said, I'm not going to do this. And I felt like I owed it to her to tell her that. And I called a mentor. What I call it, I suggest that to everyone here. You have someone that you can call on and it's okay to whine. I'm not, not necessarily what am I doing wrong as much as tell me what to do. Tell me why I'm where I'm at. And that's because you need it. And there was a guy that was the owner of the company. Cindy knows well. His name's Paul Orbison. He's deceased now. He was one of the most successful network marketers of all time. And he
Okay.
actually owned the company that I was a part of. And I said, Paul, it's just not working for me. And he gave me some advice that I think that I will tell all of you here. Is no country boy. He would say, you can't push a rope. And I'm like, what? He said, you can't push a rope. He said, you're working with the wrong people. And I said, I don't have any of the right people. I guess. I mean, I'm working with who I got. And he's like, you've got to find somebody new. You got to find somebody that wants it. You can't keep trying to push somebody who doesn't want it.
Mhm.
So that's when my business changed. I started looking for new blood, somebody that needed it like I needed it, or in essence, wanted it like I wanted it. And and from there, I actually found someone. I won't go into that whole story. You know it, Cindy, where I went to Mississippi and I found somebody. So you said, when did I know I found it? That was it. It wasn't that day. I had spent 2.5 years working the business and sucking at it.
Mhm.
But what I'd really learned was how to do the business. I learned how to suck at it. And so I mean, so what I learned
True.
was a lot. I saw other successful people, and then when I got some good people, decent people in my business, this was not far long before I met you. I found some decent people that wanted it, understood the industry, and I went from struggling to, you said, when did I know it was okay? Todd always used to kid me because I was just barely making ends meet and my checks had never been very big. He was making $30,000 a month at that company, and I was making nothing to amount to anything, a few $1,000s, not even paying my travel expenses. But I went through, we hit some good people, and my checks jumped to about 20 something $1,000s a month, and it did it quickly. And I thought, what did I do different? And the answer was nothing. I just kept doing what I was doing, except
Mhm.
after 2.5 years of sucking, I had learned some valuable lessons and I knew what to do when I found the right people. And that's really what began to happen. Um, from there, when you start making good, decent money, then you're able to pay your bills. It really makes a difference. I mean, you start become your belief level gets better. You don't seem desperate. You ever heard the old saying, "The dog always bites the person who's scared of them"? You know, people that say they're dog people. You know, well, I'm convinced when you're desperate, people see it. I'm convinced when
Yes.
you're trying to sign somebody up. So when you become the success starts to come, your confidence factor increases, and that's what happened with me. And then from there, honestly, we hit some good people, but it was never as good as some people that we hit later, which included you. So, you know, the guy from Kentucky that joined my
Okay.
business, as you know, and he led me into Ohio, where I found this real estate broker who owned a bunch of Remax offices, and she blew it up. And what the funny part is that most people don't realize I did not know Cindy. Cindy was
Mhm.
not in my, I think we calculated once you're around my 30th or 40th level. That
Yeah, at
we didn't
least it
know,
was
we
pretty
couldn't,
far down.
it was so many generations down that we didn't know. So here's the deal. When you find somebody good, hang on to them. I did not know Cindy, but I saw somebody doing some sales, doing some volume. I had somebody he called. I think she may have called me and asked some questions. He says, I was told you're the one I need to ask these questions to. But I already knew she was doing good. So what did I do? Back then, I couldn't jump on a Zoom and talk to Cindy. I
That's right.
drove to Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
And for those that
You
don't
actually
know,
rented a house in Columbus, Ohio to help me during part of that. You and Judy.
well, Cindy opened an office and she was working and she started building a massive team. And yes, I rented a house in Columbus, Ohio, and I lived there on and off for close to 2 years. But it wasn't, so I camped out. So different today. You got Zoom, you've got ways to connect, and there's things that you need to realize. You've got to connect into those people that are building. But if you've got somebody that doesn't want it and they're not pushing, at some point, it's easier to give birth than to raise the dead. And trying to beg somebody to do what they're not ready to do is virtually impossible. So that was really how it changed. And that was long time ago. As you know, Cindy, you said we've been knowing each other about 17 years. And that's it.
17,
So
18.
I
Yep.
was having success at that time, but Cindy's group. So I go from a decent income stream. I told you I wrote, you know, and by the way, everybody here's in the business. So what you make here will be up to you. I'm not making an income claim, but my income went from doing well at $20,000 a month to six figures a month. And what did I do different? Not really anything. I found the right people, and the right people joined my business. But when I did find those right people, Cindy just told you, I rented a house in fact, that your group was the one that helped me find that house. And we didn't just rent a house; we rented a really nice place.
Really nice house.
Had a grand. It was fully furnished. Had a grand piano in the living room. That's a pretty nice place. Better than a hotel room, that's for sure. And so, but it began. Then we ended up going into Minnesota, and things began to change. What changed wasn't me because I was focused. It was the people I was working with, and but the time I'd spent. And then I will say this: it was a different type of company than this. The
Mhm.
comp plan was different, so it was a little bit different build, but it did the residual there wasn't very good. It was, I mean, it was not the same as here. If I'd have had this comp plan back then, I wouldn't be here on Saturday. I
Yeah.
would have not done this call because I would have, the comp plan was so different. I love Partner Co. At that time, as we know, it was the company called RX that had the drops. And then this company is very unique. And that we won't go into that today, but that makes and it's all history now because you look back on it, it seemed going through it, my goodness, it seemed like the days were so long. The travel, Judy and I talked about this just the other night. How hard it was during those times. I was gone. She said sometimes you were gone 2 weeks. Guys, you don't have to do that anymore. The world shrunk because of the internet. So
Mhm.
the way we can pull things, does that mean you don't need to travel? And I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you want to build a massive business, you're going to have to get on the road some. Cindy's learned that. She's decided she's been traveling more. But with our systems now, a person, and I don't want you to beat yourself up. One of the things that really bothers me is that when a person, and I guarantee if you're in this and you don't feel like you're doing very well, you don't think you're doing as well as you should be, put me a thumbs up in the thing or just send a heart. I want everybody to know if you're not where you need to be, it's okay
Mhm.
as long as you're not giving up. And there's the only thing. The only thing is I saw somebody post that other something like failure is not permanent or something like that. And I thought that's very true. But quitting is giving
Yeah.
up, quitting. And so I wouldn't quit. I was stubborn. But it was easier. But I did quit mentally, but I really never quit. I just would tell myself I was quitting. And so the rest kind of became, we came here. And by the way, I want to say this company's done more than just help me financially. I was not a nutrition person. Cindy said that. I ate snowballs. If you don't know what a snowball is, they're coconut covered cupcakes. They come in orange and pink and yellow and whatever color the month is. And they that little foamy looking stuff on the outside. I love those things, especially with the Diet Coke. I drink them. Isn't that really smart? Diet Coke with a snowball that probably had 3,000 calories in it. And but I was addicted to Diet Cokes back then. I hadn't had a Diet Coke, by the way, in 13 years.
Excellent.
Quit them before this company. My daughter got me off of them. But I got on these products, and here I am, 70 years old. I have no daily medication. None. Zero. I have leukemia. Still no medication. And I had to go through treatments for a while, but these products are life changing. So what I learned from Tim Sales, and Cindy was there. So when we went to this next company, you know who the first person I called was? I called two people. A guy named Tim Whipperman. You remember Tim, still good close friend. He was the CEO
Yep.
of Warner Brothers.
Yep.
And Cindy, and we went to Florida, decided to go in this nutritional health company. And by the way, I'm on video. I still have a copy of it right back there where I said, no pills, no potions, and no lotions. I'll never get in pills, potions, and lotions. We sold telecom. Well, I learned that the real residual comes from pills, potions, and lotions, products people become passionate about. And the funny part was, I wasn't even going to take the product. I was just going to sell them. I was just going to build a team around them. I told Cindy that. I said, I'm not taking
Yeah.
that stuff.
You and I, as I recall that day, we both sat how we're sitting right now with our arms crossed. We'll see if these guys, we're with Tim Sales, we'll see if these guys are real. And all we asked was, let's see your comp plan. You and I we're not doing it unless we see your comp plan.
Oh, yeah, they had someone there explaining all the quality of products and how they were made and how clean they were and how they were sourced and how they changed. And Cindy and I like get to the money.
Yeah.
That's why we've always got along. And they didn't even bring a net product, a guru on the comp plan. They were trying to sell us on product. And by the way, now I realized if you're going to build a
Mm.
real residual income, you've got to have products that people may.
Right
Yeah,
there.
I've already had.
That's the one right there.
Let's see. So before I came upstairs, I had 4 Rejuvenex, 2 Moas, a glass full of Noni, and I got my Moringa downstairs that I will drink when I go down. So what changed? So when I said I don't take any medications, I don't, but I sure do fill my body full of good nutrition every day.
That's right.
But the thing we learned was is the comp plan was amazing. And I think Cindy and I both said if we'd have had this comp plan with what our current team size were, we were both trying to do the math on how much money we would have made. And it was kind of
I'd have been on a yacht already. I've been living on a yacht.
oh, so
You've
for
been on
those
a bigger
that
yacht.
that's absolutely. So I will, I'll brag a little bit here, guys. I will tell you, with the first company I was with, my organization had 96,000 people in it.
Yeah.
And that was not a binary comp plan for those that think it was a binary that had no, that was
No.
96,000 people that my team that we built. And
Yeah.
Cindy was a big part of that. I mean, I'd actually gone, she was there when it became huge and began to grow. The company went into momentum. And so, with all that said, though, the bottom line was you had to find the right company that has products that people get passionate about. And what I want you all, one thing, there's one lesson I want everybody to learn here. And because I don't know where everybody is, I see so many different people on here. So many people are not here, as Cindy mentioned, would be on the yacht. You may not be here because you want a yacht. You may not be here because that's not what you're after, but your why will be the most important thing you decide on. If that's retirement, if it's just to put your kids through college, if it's to pay for daycare, that's okay. But it's because it's going to be a cause and effect. The amount of effort you put in will be the amount of return you get. But it's okay not to want the same. That was a difficult thing for me, especially early on. I wanted everybody to chase the major thing. And I learned that everybody didn't have the same dream or the same desire. It's okay. If you want to make an extra $1,000 a month and that's what you're after, don't feel like you're not good as somebody else because they're after $10,000. Or you hear these stories of someone who's making 10,000 a week and you think you're not good enough. Guys, that bothers me. I hate that about this industry. You meet yourself with where you want and don't beat yourself up because you're not at the level you want to be at. You set your own decisions, but because everybody is different, I just know that when I started in this industry, all I wanted was to contribute. I needed my wife not to have to work so hard. And then when I started to see the money, I got very hungry because I'd been there before. And I think that helps. I think that someone says, well, how can someone go out and just build well, I had made millions of dollars in manufacturing. Let me make something very clear. I've never made as much money in network marketing as I made in the blue jean business. Listen to that closely. But I'm way happier. Why is that? I don't have 430 headaches for employees. I do not have overhead. I don't have bank notes to pay. I'm in my office. I work from home when I want to. And I built a income. I can promise you, Lee Jeans has not mailed me one check since we closed. And I can promise you, Calvin Klein don't know who I was anymore. When I quit working for them, that relationship was over. In network marketing, you build a true residual income, and that's only as good as the company. And guys, I didn't like it when Todd started calling us the unicorn. And I said, don't you say that. But guys, the truth of the matter is we are. I don't know of another company out there that has a comp plan. I know there's not another company with a comp plan like ours, but there's no other company that has products that have been on the market for 25 years. They don't have a company that is debt free. They don't have a company that has 60 countries. I mean, there's just so many factors here that yes, there's some other good companies. I am not going to tell you not. I know people that are in good companies. Whether or not they'll be open in 5 years, I don't know. What I can promise you about this company is it ain't going anywhere. There's nowhere to go. I mean, they can't set for up because they've got sales, they've got staff, and they put things into place. How many of you been here over 3 years? If you've been in the company over 3 years, if you came from partner, give me a heart, just give me a thumbs up. I want to know how many people. So the truth is, most of you've come on. A lot of the people now. Yeah, I see lots of people here before, and I think all I would tell you, it's a totally different. Doesn't mean those companies we weren't good before. It didn't mean we weren't making money before. It means where we're setting now is good decision makers. And the first company I was in had a networker that was not a good businessman. I think Cindy and I both agree. Wonderful person, big,
Okay.
a great mentor, fine. I'm just a great person in Paul Orbison.
Yes.
But Paul was not a good business guy. He didn't make good business decisions, and he just wasn't there. So when we changed companies, I was thinking business people. So I took business people who I thought were good businessmen, but they made bad business decisions. And what did we end up with Partner Code? You got John Wadsworth. I know he was on your call the other night, right, Cindy?
Yeah,
Last
he was. Yeah.
so John
Thursday
is a
night.
networker, made his money and literally did not have to do this. He made his money as a rep. Even though his uncle had started Noni, he was a rep. He was the guy that went out and built a huge team in another country. And then you got Darren, who was so successful in business. So when I say we have a really unique combination, I don't know of another company anywhere close to that. I mean, you've got a guy that made his wealth from network marketing, whose partner made his wealth from conventional business and literally worldwide business because his tuna company, what I call it a tuna company, I guess that's not really it, his fishing company that he sold out for multi billions was worldwide. So he already knew, and he went to Wharton Business School. I didn't even know what Wharton Business School was. I had to look it up. I didn't want anybody to know I didn't know what that was. I'm like, what Wharton Business? Well, that's pretty exclusive. And so he worked on Wall Street. So we've got a really unique company, and I know that's off track, but Cindy, you notice I get excited, so now I didn't give you a chance to ask any questions. So
Well, I have two things. One is more of a something that you taught me. So over the years, you're right, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I want to add this. Really, Chris and I have similar stories, different, very different, but similar ways we ended up in the industry. And I didn't know Chris. I also didn't have an upline. I had an upline in Chris, but I didn't have anybody, right? I had nobody in my area. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. I just jumped in, was desperate. I was in a desperate mode. I was in a have to do this mode. So I would drive on every Saturday to North Carolina or wherever there was a Super Saturday without knowing a single soul. I would drive 6.5 hours, sit through a Super Saturday, and drive 6.5 hours home to try to learn because we didn't have Zoom. We didn't have any way to learn. I didn't know anybody. There was nobody building in my area. So get rid of the excuses. And I'm going to go back to something that you taught me after I finally met you. So I end up going to Super Saturdays, and that's how Chris and I met. I don't know who my upline is. I don't know who's who. I just see people on stage. I just kept digging until I found Chris and introduced myself. And he had already seen my name and seen it up there. And he's like, wait a minute. And then kind of the rest is history. But what's funny is when I was even doing what I thought was pretty good, you would give me advice. And one of the you gave me many pieces of advice, and so did Paul Orbison. But one that you told me that has stuck with me, and it's a hard one that I know a lot of people here are making the same mistake. And I want to bring it up and see if you can maybe it's just a short one. But I was trying to help a lot of family and friends myself. And you said, Cindy, you can't carry them on your back, buy them a house later when you make enough money. Do you remember saying that to me? And
I
you're like, what do you do? You actually somewhat kind of a little bit yelled at me at that point. We were friends at that point, but you're like, what are you doing? You can't carry everybody. You can't do it for them. And that was a hard lesson for me because I know a lot of you on here. You want it so bad for your kids, for your siblings, for your parents, for somebody else in your world, for your best friend. And if you sit there and try to carry them on your back, it weights you down and you won't cross the finish line. You can help them more by you crossing. And you really got on me about that. And it still probably took me a year to quit doing it because we just love people and we want to help them and we want them to be. And I'll tell you something else. It's lonely when you're the only one in your team or your area that's having real high success. You want everybody with you. I sincerely want everybody on my team to pass me. I sincerely do. I'm competitive, so I want to be kind of like at their heels, but I want them up there because it just feels better. But you really taught me that and had to kind of yell at me a couple times.
that came from Paul Orbison. So I didn't. You thought it was my original, but it wasn't. Paul told me that because I was wanting my sister to do more, and I love Sheila, but she's always kept her job. That's okay. She did what she wanted to do. But I wanted Kristen to do it. Y'all know that. Now Kristen's doing it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But Kristen is not going to do this full time.
Right.
And I got to accept that. She loves her gym business. She loves helping people in that world, but she loves our products. And so the thing is that you've got to understand that you got to do for you. And then the others can come, and you can't worry about what people think. That was a difficult thing for me too. And so and the other family members. Now the funny part is, I still have family members to this day I wish would do this.
Yeah.
Close family members, and they'll say, "You can do this, but I can't," which
Mhm.
simply is a cop out. It just means they don't want to put the time, and that's okay. But is it no? It's no. And I think I really learned that from Kristen at the gym. Listen, I'm not in shape. Anybody knows me, sees me, you can tell you right now, I'm not running anywhere. And if I'm running, you better start running because something's chasing me. I'll tell you that right quick. So I'm not doing that. But what I will tell you is that people that go to the gym every day are better in shape. I'm not. But in business world, it's very important to me. Why? Because I feel like I'm responsible. I think it's biblical. I think it's my responsibility to support my family. And then not and it's also my responsibility to leave something to them, not just make ends meet, but to leave something. And so the long and short of it is that you've got to take care of you first before you can take care of the others. And so that's what Paul used to tell me that all the time. Quit trying to drag your family along with you because I didn't even get my family. This guy made $1 million a month in Excel. $1 million. I looked at the checks. And he said, you'd think they'd finally go do it. No, they didn't. He said, but I helped them out a lot and I paid their houses off for them and things of that nature. And there was a time when I thought I was going to try to become that big, but I learned that I was more satisfied just getting by. I think I said on stage at the last PXP about my granddaughter. You know, and so next Tuesday I go with her to college, and I rented her an apartment in a nice area, and I bought her a Cadillac SUV for graduation. I'm not bragging. I'm saying it ain't that I'm so obsessed with money. It's just what I can do to help my family members. So I bought her that car. You think she loves her pop? I can promise you, that's what she calls me is pop. So what the money does is that I can do things for others. So it wasn't my other family members, but it's my grandchildren for me now. And people give me a hard time about a yacht. I could go buy a bigger boat. But you know what? I got two grandkids to put through college, or three, I guess. I guess Kristen will make me do hers too, since I'm doing the other ones. The other ones can't afford it. They don't have the means to take care of it. Kristen does. She does well enough, but I'll end up doing both. But so what I want you to realize is that you've got probably the most important factor that I can tell you is a hint today. Write down your why. I was told to do that early on. And guys, I wrote down my why. I wrote down some financial goals. They were not massive. They adjusted over time, but their goal was simple. I want to get debt free. We did that. I wanted to put back enough money that I didn't have to worry about if I don't get an income that I've got money coming in. And so there's things that your why has got to be important. It can't be, I want to in my personal opinion, it can't be, I want a Ferrari. It's got to be more heartfelt. It needs to be something that's so important to you that is more than just fancy cars. I love something James Zane posted the other day. Years ago, he had someone mentoring him and had him to buy a Bentley before he could afford it.
Mhm.
Guys, I still drive a 2016 Mercedes, and I did not buy it brand new. I believe in fiscal responsibility. I could go buy and pay cash for two of those right tomorrow and not even go. I just go write a check. I don't need that. It's just not that important to me. There was a time when cars were, and there was a time when boats were. I have a nice boat, and I could go buy a bigger one. But that's not more important things to me are the whys that'll make you tear up. The whys that'll make you feel very like those are critical. You got to write that down. And you've got to be able to. Paul Orbison says something to me. I refer to him a lot because he was such an amazing mentor. He told me when you think about quitting, he said, and he knew I had two young children. I say young, they were teenage. Christian was probably when I first began 11, 12, 13 range. He said, be willing to walk in their bedroom when they're asleep and look at them and tell them, that dad's not good enough to make you do something special for you. And I'm just going to have to quit and you'll just have to make it on your own when you get older. Well, I couldn't say that. And it really made me think about what I really wanted and how I changed. So one of the things that I learned from a lot of different, I call mentors, is that don't buy things you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't like. I think that's something to really live your life by. I like Bentleys, can afford a Bentley, don't need one. It was more important to me to see my granddaughter go through college and not have student loans. It was more important to me to see, I saw that first company sent Kristen to college with no student loans. Funny part is she got a master's degree and she uses none of that education. She just owns a gym. But, or did it. It taught her discipline. So I'm not against school. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not. But what I want you to know is that this industry can change your life. The biggest problem people have is staying focused long enough. I saw somebody on this call that I've really, really, she doesn't have any idea. I'm going to call her out. Rebecca I never pronounce it. Rebecca Gursky. You know what? Her upline quit on her. And she's called me multiple times. And when I tell you she had good enough reasons to quit, there was people on her. She has people below her that were doing some business, but they weren't on her team. She had people on the same groups, but she refused to quit. And now I'm starting to see her have some really good success. I'm starting to see her, and she's on the leg for me that she's way below my seventh level. It's not changing anything for me, but I have no way I can explain how much it gives me warmth to see someone who's stuck and should have quit. And I wouldn't have been embarrassed and upset with her for quitting because she really struggled. But you know what? I'm seeing her team grow and I see her passion for these products and I see her passion for helping people. Guys, when you can do things to help others in the same process, help yourself, what else can you have? I mean, that's why I love network marketing. When I had 430 employees, I thought they liked me. They did not. I just didn't know it. They sucked up because I was the boss and I was the owner. And then when we lost the company, that I realized very quickly that they weren't liking me. They just wanted the job. Well, in network marketing, you're going to have real true partnerships, people that you become friends with, the relationships. I've had someone here that is something you can't put a price tag on. Cindy and I have been friends a long time, and she decided she wasn't prepared when she came with us in the beginning. She stayed active, but she wasn't prepared to work right then. She had some life happened to her. She had some things to go through that she had to go through. But guess what? She went through them, and now I'm so proud of her because, she's made the CEO, and she's built a really good team. And I saw some other people in chat saying their upline quit. So that's the point. People quit things all the time. People quit church. I see people change churches. I'm not going to pick on anybody. I grew up in the Baptist church. And guys, if one thing you know about Baptists, they've been a member usually of 3 different ones because they get mad. What's the point? That church is not those people, it's just God's church. That's the person you're supposed to be going for, not, and by the way, I'm guilty. I left the church I was at because I didn't like the pastor. But that was just because I wanted to change, not because I didn't want the church to go bad. I just I felt like I needed something to spiritually grow. But so guys, when you realize that we have a special company, and if you decide this is not your company, I'm not going to be that person that gets mad at you. I just think we have the best company because we have the best products. I think we have the best ownership. And without question, Cindy and I both tell you, we know we have the best comp plan. So if you're here for the money, we know we have that part. But if you're here for the best products, you ask my daughter, I don't know why they're the best, but she says there's nothing out there on the market to compare it. Karen's on here. She's a pharmacist. And I know if she thought there was better products, she would be about those. And they sell you don't realize that they're in the holistic business. They have a storefront that they have to pay rent on in more than one location. And they sell nutritional products daily. So they know about good products. So guys, what you've got to decide is your why. Write it down. And if there's one thing, I can still find my original. Now I've surpassed all the goals. Everything's been checked off the list, every single one of them. The income stream, the debt free. There's things I could tell you stories about that why I almost quit, why people hurt me. Y'all have all got those people. I'm going to tell one last story.
Yeah.
I love your stories. I want y'all to know when I started here, I had a man in my Sunday school class who told me I was stupid. You know what I'm going to tell him.
Do
I
I love this
use his
story
name,
too.
but I called him to talk to him about my business and wanted him to listen. And he said, I can't believe you fell for that. It's one of them things. It's a pyramid scheme. He went through all these crazy things. Well, it hurt me because he was the guy who said he was going to pray for me to find something to do. I've lost my business. I'm bankrupt. I'm in depression. And guess what? He really, really offended me, told me I was stupid. Literally, quote, I can't believe you're stupid enough to fall for that. I wrote it down. His name's Walter. I don't even mind telling you his name. I wrote down on my why, don't let Walter be right. I highlighted it. 6 years later, Cindy will remember, our company was featured in Success from Home magazine. I was in the magazine. I had made $680,000 that year. Guess who I went to see? Walter. I paid him a visit. Well, I gave him a call and said, what are you doing? He said, I'm sitting on the back porch having a glass of wine. I said, pour me one. I'll be right over. Didn't ask for an appointment. He didn't know what I'm coming for. I took a copy of the magazine. And I said, Walter, do you remember me calling you? And he said, I don't hardly remember that. Well, see, he didn't really mean it as bad, but I took it very personal. And he said, oh, he thought I was there to re-recruit him. I said, you're misunderstanding, Walter. I came to thank you because you motivated me to a point that I was not going to let you be right. I was convinced I was right. And by the way, this guy was driving 108 miles one way to work every day because he lost his other job. And I said, Walter, you still driving 100 miles to work? He said, I am. I said, I hate it for you. I really did. I meant that way. I hated it for him. Not bad, but I did a little. And he said, but here was the funny part. I showed him the magazine to show him the company was doing well. And he said, so where is your picture? And I said, you'll find that on page 12. And I had it marked. I had a tag in it with a sheet of paper. I had printed a copy of my 1099. Now, I know y'all think that's really bad because that's vindictive, but I'm Old Testament. A little eye for eye. So I went back. Now, was it satisfying? It really was. Do I regret it? No, I don't, guys. My wife said, his wife never spoke to me again. I said, that's okay. They weren't our friends. I'm sorry, folks. If someone runs you down for trying to better yourself, they're not your friend. The bad part is it might be a family member and you can't cut them off, but you can prove them wrong and make them regret it and make them wish they'd followed you. But that choice is yours. I could, if I had quit when I told my sister I was going to, I could never went to see Walker 4 years later. So I will leave that with that. I'm already over time. Guys, everybody has things that they're going to go through. Life will go up and you'll go down. Business will change. Your life will change. How much time you can put into it will change. But don't try to do what Chris Doyle did. Don't try to become Cindy. Don't become Todd Rowland. Don't become Brent Palmer. I can name off so many people that I know that have had so much. Become the best of you. And if that's $1,000 a month, or if it's $500 a month, guys, if you do the math on it, in the U.S., the average Social Security check is $900. I believe it's right that range. It's within $50 of the average. And it took you 40 years to get there. So what if it took you 10 years to get to $1,000 a month, but you didn't give up? You were consistent. You put your whatever number of hours that is to you, 4 a week, 10 a week, and all going to be relative. The more hours in, the more return you'll get. That's just a cause and effect world. But don't beat yourself up because someone else is outperforming you because you don't have the time. And let's face it, you may not be as good as they are right now. Guys, that doesn't matter. There was only one Tom Brady. For those who are not football fans, he's the GOAT. I mean, and by the way, it's hard for me to say that because he came from Michigan. I know Cindy hates that too.
You too.
The fact is, he's won more I'm a Peyton Manning guy, but he didn't win 5 Super Bowls. Peyton Manning was great. But guys, there's a lot of guys that won a Super Bowl. And there's a lot of guys played quarterback that made a lot of money that played in the NFL that never made it to a Super Bowl. But their families were ever changed. You do not have to be the GOAT. Just do what you need and what you want. And you know what? You make your decisions is where you're going in this. And don't let whoever it is in your life, don't let Walter be right.
We're all getting shirts that say "Don't be Walter." Don't let Walter be right for PXP. When you see it, you guys will know.
Everybody's already got them. Everybody has that one. And it may be, like I said, it could be a family member. Guys, I know we went over today. Sorry, I get pretty passionate about watching people try to change their lives and watching them try to do what they can do. So thanks for being on. As all of you know, I'm really slowing down more and more. Cindy is going to be doing this call every week, and I will be here with her on a regular basis. But guys, I'm just so glad and so fortunate to have all of you in my life around the listen. When we started this call 10 years ago, we were lucky if we had 15 people on it. And now we've had as many as 500 on and consistently several hundred every week. And so it's great to see all of you on. Hey, Sheila Bukowski, I see you on here too. She's been my guest before. So, guys, we just have so many great people in our company. I just really appreciate you all. Y'all have a great day.
Feel free to unmute and tell Chris goodbye. Thanks, Chris. You know I always love your stories.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you,
We love
Chris.
you.
Thank you.
That
God
was
bless you.